You were inspired to start a better for you food company based on your own health journey in a way. What has now running a business, a better for you health business, taught you about your own health?
What a beautiful question. I think that the whole thing is ironic. In general, I just spoke about this recently with a friend, which is that I started this business in the effort of showing people my own health journey and showing how to create healthier habits and healthier snacks. And then all of a sudden, you lose yourself a little bit in the stress of the business and you let the business take over you, or at least I'm speaking from personal experience. And then it becomes this thing where you realize, how am I running a health food company and I'm not healthy myself anymore? And that was a shift I had a couple months ago, very recently. So I think finding the balance is super important. That word is used so often, but it's true. What I started off with, that ended up shifting, and I let the business run me. And so I'm unlearning that right now.
What did that look like, that unlearning and recognizing that the business, was there a tipping point where you realized the business was running me and now I need to take a step back into my own health?
Yeah, for sure. Well, I was realizing that when it was affecting my emotions and like my responses to things, and I was letting it soak in so deeply. And I don't know, I think that it depends on the type of person you are too. I'm more sensitive, triple water sign, lots of emotion. And because of that, I let the business sometimes soak up in me, like the issues. Like when there's a problem in business, I was letting it infiltrate into my personal life and my well-being. And of course, sometimes it's a good thing. There's such a thing as good stress, and to feel like you have to, solve, fix, conquer. But once it's literally taking over your body and your emotions, I don't think that's where I realized I needed to make a change.
What does that process look like for you? Because there's a thing to be an entrepreneur and actually be invested in the business that you're building, which you want to be in a way, but you don't want it to completely derail your life. And I think personal experience, the parts of my life where I feel the most fulfilled is where business and personal are blurred. And I'm doing the things that I enjoy so much that I don't necessarily need to define it as work, and it's more an act of creation.
Yeah.
So
love that.
With that in mind, what does that process look like for you, finding more of this balance or more of this alignment in work and play?
That's a good one. And I think externally, people try to box you into certain things. And I know this because some members of my family will be like, oh, did you go to that was that a business thing or for fun? And I was like, neither. It was kind of both. And I agree. I feel like that's where you light up the most, is when it is that intersection. I like that question though, because it's actually tangible. You're like saying, well, what did you do? Or I'm still working on it. It's a work in progress, but it's being intentional about where I'm putting my energy and realizing which environments are burning me out and where I feel like I'm my best self, and creating boundaries. Again, I know that word is overused, but saying no to certain things. Like I was feeling like maybe I had FOMO for not going to this event, or I had to go to this event. I had to be there, but I was realizing that it was deteriorating me, instead of, okay, I'm in a good place, good headspace. I'm choosing to go to this business event, this networking event. And yeah, saying no. I was saying yes to everything. I could do it all. And I was packing my schedule. And I know I've talked about this on retreats that I've been on with you, which is that I don't know why I'm always in a rush places. And then when you're in a rush, you're not present. And a lack of presence is essentially where a lot of anxiety can stem from, because you're not living in the moment. You're like thinking about the future, and then uncertainty, fear of the future is all anxiety.
So did you have a date and time today? I'm going to do a review of my calendar, see all the things that are lighting me up and not, and then remove, or like get real tactical with me. What did the action steps look like in order for you to recognize that?
This is good. Well, I think traveling to Europe, I went to France a few months ago. And I realized, okay, people here are also way more balanced. I've known that for a while. Just the European mindset in general, they have more joie de vivre, like the joy of living and actually living, not just work. That's a really good question. I think I started to actually do what I said I was going to do. I always said, I'm going to start meditating. I'm going to start. How many times did I say I never did it? So I downloaded the Open app a few weeks ago. This is very new. And every morning I start with that. And I know this is kind of weird, but I like feel the energy of the day, like what I want to do, what I don't want to do. And I almost know what type of day it's going to be based on that moment. I don't know how to explain. I think doing, in terms of the calendar, being okay to push things out. So tactical, actionable, people message me, text me saying, hey, I would love to grab dinner, would love to grab coffee, Before, I would try to squeeze it in because I would feel bad. I'm a people pleaser at heart, and I would feel bad if I had to say, hey, I'm not available for another week and a half or 2 weeks, even though I technically am available. Like last night, I did nothing but sit on my floor, and I sometimes like to eat dinner on my floor. I know that's weird, but sit on the floor, and I put my laptop and I watch my show and I made my salmon, my dinner, obviously salmon, and I technically could have filled that time by doing something. And I used to do that, which is that if I had a free moment, I would go and I would text a friend and say, hey, are you free? I actually can do dinner tonight. I actually can get coffee. Oh, I can do this. But instead it's now, no, I can push that plan out and not do something today. And that is the biggest thing that I've learned because I burnt out.
Mm-hmm. I had a previous guest on here, Ben Fisher, who is a huge systems guy.
Okay.
Software, tech background, but very he's eaten Chipotle every day for lunch for 11 years. Super systems. And this is the regimen of how it goes. And something that came up on the podcast with him that I shared a little bit about me was I thought the same before. I needed to fill every moment. Otherwise, I wasn't being productive enough.
Yeah.
And I wasn't going to get the things that I wanted. And I created structure in my life so that things could flow. And a lot of people view structure as in opposition to allowing creativity to flow.
Yeah.
But just as a river that doesn't have banks ceases to flow, so does your life.
Beautiful.
So if you create the structure that you want, and for me, this looked like creating a wireframe of what my week looked like. So say on Tuesdays and Thursdays from noon to 1, that's my time to get coffee with a new connection. I have that already blocked into my calendar. So if you schedule this Tuesday, someone schedules Thursday, then I have to push you into the next Tuesday because that's the time I've allotted for that thing in my life.
Okay. Yes, I have done that. I guess now you saying it has reminded me. Monday night is always by myself. It's Sydney's night. Monday night, I'm always cooking. It's there. Wednesday is when my assistant isn't with me in the middle of the week, the Wednesday lunch block. And I've put, if anyone wants to meet me for lunch, it's at Erewhon, Culver City. I can walk there. I can take calls on the way there. It works for me. I don't have to leave. And I block that Erewhon Wednesday lunch. So for anyone that wants to meet me, it's in that's my structure. And if you can't make that Erewhon, Culver City lunch, then you're the next week or a Wednesday, Friday. You know what I mean? So yes, I have. Thank you for that reminder. I guess you're just more you're more of the color-coded calendar type than I am. I don't think I could get, I can't get that deep in it. My assistant has tried to get me to do it. I'm sure it would be helpful to see social work. Maybe I'll do it. Maybe I'll try. I actually haven't fully gotten into it. But yeah, that's my lunch block. If you want to meet me, it's Wednesday and Friday. Otherwise, Monday, Tuesday, Thursday, I'm cooking.
I think
Yeah.
I think I'm going to change my Instagram bio to a color-coded sound type.
But you are, though. You used to tell me, and I'd be like, yeah, I don't know.
Yeah, but trust me, I think that is so fun.
Okay.
All right, let's pivot towards business a little bit.
Okay.
When vetting a partner or supplier, what are some things that throughout the years you've learned to look for or look to avoid?
Love this question. Okay, I just made a LinkedIn post about it yesterday. Number one, energy. I know that sounds all woo-woo, but I've realized if this is not French Squirrel energy, I don't want it. I know that some people are direct and some people have different styles of working, but I want to work with people who I enjoy working with that make the business fun. Like, this business isn't supposed to be something that I like, I got to go talk to this person. I want to talk to that person. And I wrote an email yesterday that was so refreshing saying, I really appreciate working with you guys. It's a pleasure. And it's not worth a few dollars extra, a few dollars less a pound. If the oat flour company that's talking to me wants to sell me oat flour and they're not so much a pleasure to work with as the other one, even though they have a less expensive product, I don't care. It's not worth it for me because I rather work with people who are communicative, respond, who are good people. I know that's weird to start off with that, but that's number one. Then number two, obviously, I've learned over the last few years what the market is like in terms of prices. When I first started, I never knew. I didn't know. It was all blind, like naive. If someone gave me a price for oat flour, I kind of just took it at face value because I didn't know. I'm sure they could have, taken advantage of me knowing that I was just starting out. You never know. Now I have a grip on what is quote unquote fair. So I look for that. And then number three, quality, for sure. Quality control, asking for spec sheets, knowing where they're sourcing things from. We get a lot of customers for French Squirrel that say, wow, your medjool dates that you use are so juicy and delicious. And I tell them that we intentionally source them. So we source them from Coachella Valley. They're manually sorted through too. So anything that's like too small or like not as like a little dry, we chop it up and we use it in our date peanut butter instead, reducing food waste. But in general, it's really about the quality. I'm a stickler for quality. So
what are some of the other ways that you ensure quality and authenticity in the ingredients that you're using?
Like the singular ingredient.
Yes.
Number one, connecting with whoever's on the team and asking them where they're sourcing it from. Heavy metal testing. A lot of the ingredients, like in the chocolate space, are also with peanut butter. This is a big thing right now on social media. And it's something that a lot of doctors, when they're telling you that on your gut healing journey, for instance, and I'm open about this on my page, and I'm healing from candida, can be triggered by mold and toxins. And a lot of doctors will tell you to avoid peanut butter because most big brand peanut butters on shelf are not small batch. They were produced so long ago and they're sitting on the shelf moldy. A lot of them have added seed oils, emulsifiers, preservatives, and we test each small batch for mold. A lot of our retailers will ask now, because of this whole peanut butter thing, if you have a certificate. We test. And I think that's key, is if the supplier is not willing to share the sourcing with you, it's wrong. It's wrong. Something is up. They should be able to say, we sourced from Peru. Here's a spec sheet. Here's quality control. We have a standard operating procedure, French Squirrel does. If anyone wants to ask us in terms of in the food business, all our manufacturers have our standard operating procedure. So this is how we do it. This is how we maintain quality control.
What did French Squirrel look like in the early days before the SOPs were rolled out and before you were able to test and do all these quality control checks?
Yeah, there was no SOP in the beginning. The standard operating procedure was me, myself, and I. But I did everything myself, and I had my food handler's license, but everything was a mess, but a beautiful mess. And I don't mean that it wasn't clean. That's not what I mean. I just mean we were just going by each batch, and we didn't have systems, as you would say. And it was when I was making the product, but then eventually going into working with manufacturers, they of course need a system. And so we work together on how do we make this process the most efficient possible. And it really made me serious about systems and operations. That was never something that was never a skill that you're taught, is like how to make a standard operating procedure.
You've grown a lot. I've known you for quite a few years now, and it's been really cool to see you progress through your own journey and to step into the woman that you're becoming as well. And I remember a couple of years ago when like French Squirrel was just first starting and you had your hands in everything. And it was like, I don't know, this goes here. I think this is here. But you allowed yourself to try and test and fail and learn and iterate. And that was something that I think I have nothing to do with the CPG space and I have nothing to do with food. But I think that a lot of, especially in LA, a lot of people that are starting out don't have that gumption, that that willingness to try and learn
and fall on your face.
But it's not falling on your face if you're learning from it. It's falling forward. So yes, it is falling on your face because you're falling forward. But that was something that I've always appreciated in you.
What was the word you used?
Gumption.
Gumption.
I've had like quite a few words that my grandma used to say, like come out. Like the other day I said taut. And I was like, where is this coming from?
Okay, no, that's good. I want to add more words like that. Yeah, it's great.
So having the ability to say, I don't know what it is, but I'm going to figure it out. And I think that is, among other things, a missing ingredient in entrepreneurship is the ability to become resourceful and not worry too much about the resources that you have at the moment.
I thank you. I've been like this since I was a kid. I realized too, when even the Expo West trade show, and it was so nice that you were there. I mean, it's crazy. Like it was the best and worst thing. I mean, it was arguably the most challenging thing I did in the almost 4 years in business. This month is 4 years in business, August. And I promised myself I was going to do this show at one point or another. And again, I let another year go by and another year. And I was like, no, I made this promise to myself that I'm going to do this show. But it was like this unknown, like black cloud. And I didn't know anything about how to run a trade show. I knew absolutely nothing. But I almost I had to conquer this. Like I had to figure it out. I had to know. And so I went in so blindly. It's crazy. So crazy. And I definitely think it was a big contributor to my stress, which then led me to this whole candida thing and the healing the nervous system over the last few months. Definitely. That was probably it's probably where it all came, the downfall. I don't regret it though. It was great, but it was a lot of stress. But I've never learned so much. And who was saying this? My therapist. She said it literally created new neuro pathways for me, because if you don't know about something, you figure it out, it like expanded my brain. And now anything is possible. After I conquered that show, I could do anything.
You realize the only limitation you have is your own imagination.
Yep.
And once you have something that tips the scale and makes you recognize that you're capable of that thing, you say, oh, well, what else am I capable of that I didn't know I was in the moment?
Yep.
Speaking of the trade show, what came of the trade show? And what are some of those lessons that you learned throughout?
I think number one is you can never be too organized and prepared. we were very methodical with it, like writing things down, creating hour sheets for the employees working at the booth. I think number 2, I'd say, would be to set up the booth so that that the founder especially is able to turn off in the best way and relax and be the sociable person to be able to connect with people. And if you don't have the proper systems, again, then you're worried about the booth. And if you don't have the right people, that's everything. I had an amazing support system to lean on. I had my best friends that were working the booth, my business manager, Lauren, and I was able to actually be Sydney. And like why French Squirrel is because a lot of it is just me talking to people. Like that's how I've built an audience on social media and connecting with other women, which is my mission, is to help other women, right? And so if I was worried about the minute details of the booth, like, oh, this bag is crooked here, then I wouldn't have been able to be present. So I think that's huge. Like you can never be too prepared with how the logistics are running in the booth because you have to show up as your best self. And people, 1,000%. I could not have done that single-handedly without my friends and my business manager. 1,000%. Wow. I don't know what else. I think just also being patient. Like I didn't know what the outcome of this show would be at all. I thought whatever this is, I only looked at it as a learning lesson. Like spent thousands of dollars on this thing to build the neuro pathways and realize that I'm capable. But then we ended up getting our largest retail account, Home Goods, and they approached us, and it was the wildest moment. I almost fainted. And I told you, Kevin, about it, and I was so excited. I was like jumping up and down, and I didn't know anything. I had no expectations. I said, whatever comes from this is whatever's meant to be will be. And then we ended up getting this huge account. So when people ask, is the trade show worth it? It was definitely worth it for us. But then I don't want other brands to think, oh, well, just because you got that doesn't mean I will, you know?
Mm-hmm. How much do you view the success of French Squirrel as being relational versus building the systems?
I think relational, number 1. It's people is everything, which is why when going back to the question you asked me about vetting suppliers, energy, people that are in the business, people that are in my orbit, the French Squirrel audience, it's the customers. I couldn't be here if people weren't buying it. It's amazing. And I show up online on social media and I talk about my story and people connect with it. And I get messages from girls or even in person. I was at an event on Sunday and 2 girls go, oh my God, are you French Squirrel? And I was like, yeah. They go, you have no idea. We've been following you for the last few years and you really helped us with food and my relationship with food. And I was like, oh my God, that's so nice. And it's not even about people buying the product. It's about the whole messaging. That's another conversation, by the way, about how people call me French Squirrel now and not even Sydney, which is another conversation.
How do you feel about that?
I made a LinkedIn post on that too. Listen, it'd be annoying if no one recognized French Squirrel. But then there's the other part of it that's like, it's not all of me. There's more to Sydney than French Squirrel. I don't want to become my business. That's why I don't like it anymore, because it goes back to your first question about health and business and the business becoming me. And so I was on the treadmill the other day at the gym and some guy from my high school came up to me. He saw me. He goes, oh my God, hey, French Squirrel. I go, it's like, I have a name. Not French Squirrel, it's Sydney. And I get it. It's so nice. It's like well-intentioned. It's not with poor intention, but it's me actively disassociating the two. Like the success or lack thereof of French Squirrel is not tied to Sydney's worth or lack thereof.
But you also don't then get to see the people who don't know that you are the face of French Squirrel, because they would never be able to ever identify you in public.
Right.
So you only see the side of where people do see you
that's
through.
true.
So it's a very one-sided approach. Because
that's true.
There was kind of a similar analogy. I forget where I heard this. They did complete tangential story, but in World War II, the planes that made it back to the base, they would audit where the bullet holes were in the planes.
Okay.
And then they would reinforce the places where the bullet holes were and then send the planes back out. What they failed to recognize was the planes that didn't return were the places where they actually needed to reinforce the plane, because those were the ones that were shot down. So maybe the body of the plane was the ones that were shot, and those went down. They were only reinforcing the wings, but those are the ones that made it back, so they were actually okay. They needed to reinforce the planes where the bullet holes weren't. So relating this into the same context is, you see where people recognize you from, you don't see the places where people don't recognize you at all. And it could be 80-20, 90-10, 95-5, but because you don't have any context on the opposite, you might not be able to recognize that there are so many other people out there that see the brand as a brand, but not you as the face behind it.
100%. I love that. And that's why this month this past month, I was actively putting myself in those 20% environments.
Explain.
The environments where people don't know who I am.
Okay.
I've never done that so much than in the last month. I have gone to events that have nothing to do with business. More Jewish related, like Jewish events in LA, people asking me, what do you do? And I said, I'm in the food business. That's it. Then the people that are curious go, oh, what does that mean? What does that mean you're in the food business? And I go, oh, I own my own food company. They go, oh, wow, so awesome. Like, do you do farmers markets, or are you in stores? And I go, oh, we're in retail stores like Erewhon, Mothers, Bristol Farms. They go, Erewhon? What's Erewhon? No, serious. And there are people in Los Angeles who have no idea what Erewhon is, and that's perfectly okay. And they don't know anything about me. They don't know about French Squirrel. And it's nourishing that 20% of like, there is more to me than that. The thing is, it's social media that then ruins it. Because they go, oh, what's your Instagram? And they follow me, and they all of a sudden see everything that I do. And I'm just like, damn, I wanted to keep the cover on for a little longer.
Yeah, but be proud of what you do as well. And I don't think if they meet you from a personal perspective, they're ever going to say, hey, French Squirrel.
No, I don't think so, because they're not in the business food space. I don't think they would ever call me that. So yeah. So
then in the inverse right now, what is Sydney as an individual most excited about?
Great question. Thank you. Most people go, what are you doing in business in the next few weeks? What am I most excited about? Our retreat, or your retreat that I'm going on. For those of you that don't know that are listening, how I even started French Squirrel was because of Kevin and the yoga retreat, where I know we talked about this on a previous podcast, small tangent, but seriously.
Sydney didn't think I was going to feed her for a week in Bali.
And so I brought protein bites on the trip, and then those protein bites ended up being what we launched, long story short. But no, truthfully, I've reflected on that all the time too, about just the yoga retreats and how they have played a significant role in shaping the future, of my life after the first one, not even knowing that people like you guys existed. I know that sounds weird, but after college, after UC Santa Barbara, I didn't know that there were people that were into yoga and mindfulness, but then also like would go out and enjoy life and eat a steak, and that weren't just juice cleansing and stuff. Like, I didn't know that there was an in-between. So it's awesome. And what I'm looking forward to is now the 5th yoga retreat that I've been on with you, unwinding, traveling, and continuing to go to more events that have absolutely nothing to do with business. As I just said, I've been reading more books that have nothing to do with business and tapping into more spiritual things. And Yeah. And continuing this journey of finding the balance between business and health.
I want to ask this next question with two separate lenses. So one personal, one business. There are so many different paths that you can take, both in your personal life and in business. How do you know, let's start with French Squirrel. Mm-hmm. How do you know what is the next step to take or which path to take? And how do you orient yourself in terms of what you're going to work towards or who you're going to reach out and contact? Taking a quick break from this episode to remind you that your inputs matter. This show was designed and created to help you build a high-performing, healthy, wealthy life. So if you feel that you're getting value from this episode, please go ahead and share it with someone that you feel would get value as well. Now, fun fact, 90% of listeners of this show are not actually subscribed to the podcast. So if you would take a moment and go ahead and tap the subscribe button, it would mean the world to me. Thank you so much for being here. Now back to the show.
Good question. I think, obviously, data is super important. Like, there's two sides of it. There's the logical, analytical, and there's also the emotional, intuitive piece. Truthfully, the emotional, intuitive piece comes first for me. As you can tell, that's always where I go back to. And I think most founders are that way. There are definitely other founders that are more analytical, data-oriented. I'm not as much, but you have to have a balance of both. So I would say analyzing the data of where are customers putting their attention, what are they purchasing, and it may be different than what you originally thought. We just onboarded onto TikTok Shop because that's becoming like the new Amazon. People are clicking on videos and purchasing directly, and I thought, I'll upload all the products, but I definitely think the cereal clusters, our Bizou, or the dates are going to crush it on TikTok Shop. Like, that is the TikTok Shop product. No one's going to buy a glass jar of peanut butter on TikTok Shop. Boy, was I wrong. I was wrong. So my emotional, intuitive side was like, oh, I'm going to push the cereal clusters. I'm going to push the dates. Not. I've sold so much peanut butter the last month, date peanut butter. People are saying this is the best thing I've ever had. This is the best peanut butter. Creators are organically buying it and reviewing it, buying it on TikTok Shop. And it's really amazing to watch. And I never thought that people would buy our date peanut butter. I launched the date peanut butter as more of a supplementary product, if that's the right word. I didn't think it was going to become a hero product. I thought it was just going to be a line extension. Something because people asked what peanut butter we use and, which brand do you use? And I'm like, it's not a brand, it's ours. So I was like, why don't I just bottle it or jar it, excuse me. And I didn't think it would become a top seller, and it's becoming a top seller. So now that's the emotional piece or intuitive piece that wasn't exactly spot on. Like, I just thought maybe I would push the cereal clusters. It didn't work. So then the analytical piece comes in because I'm looking at the data. People are buying the peanut butter. So now I go, okay, I'm going to push the peanut butter. So then all my social media content has been why this is the best date peanut butter you'll ever have. This is the peanut butter you should buy. Why other brands have mold and pesticides and seed oils. This is why you should buy ours, because ours doesn't. And I think that's, again, it's a blend, and being able to pivot. If you can't pivot, then that's everything as a founder.
So it starts with the intuitive piece with you.
Yes.
And then once you see the data, you allow yourself to pivot, and I was right or I was wrong is irrelevant, but you take what you learned and run with it.
Love that recap. Yes. That's exactly what I was trying to say. And then after the data, then it becomes intuitive and organic again. Like, once I see that, I'm like, okay, great, awesome. The creativity fires, and I'm like, and making a bunch of videos on peanut butter.
Is it similar for your personal life?
Ooh. Yes. I evaluate what's working and what's not working after energetically going to certain events or meeting certain people. And then once I see the data, beautiful question. And the data is my blood panel and lab results, which is amazing that we have access to that. And self-analysis on like my physical and mental health, then I go, okay, what's working, what's not, and then go that way. But yes, what a great question.
Have you always been like that? Where you've wanted to see the data in things, or was that something that you had to learn and adopt?
I had to learn and adopt it. It's not something I've always been, even in school and as a kid, like kindergarten through high school, like the whole way, I've always been better at English. I did communication and I studied communication in college, language, words, marketing, creative, math, and numbers was always a little bit more difficult for me. Not that I wasn't good at it, I just didn't like it. I didn't enjoy it. So now it's like, okay, I'm going to actually find the enjoyment in the data and like looking at it. And now, like, oh my God, this is so fun to see which product customers are purchasing. And I envy people sometimes that are more data driven. But then again, I don't wish that I was someone that I was not, because I wouldn't have built French Squirrel if I didn't have that intuitive emotional piece. Like sometimes I should be more data driven. It's just not how I operate.
But you can also bring people in to complement the places that you don't necessarily have the expertise in.
Which is why I have our fractional CFO who tells me. And she's like, here's where we need to shift the business. I've been 70-30 retail e-com split. So 70 retail, 30 e-com. And for those of you who don't know about the food business, the margins at retail are razor blade thin. And how to create a more positive cash flow business is to make it more of a 60-40. So she's like, we're going to attempt to do 60-40, which means scaling back on retail a little bit and pumping the e-com sales, which is why I've been deep in TikTok shop.
How hard is it to get into a retailer? And is that the goal that CPG brands should be striving for when starting?
Also, great question. I appreciate the intentional questions. They're very different than other podcasts. It's great. It's not general. It's very directed. Getting into retail is tough because you need, it's kind of like what came first, the chicken or the egg. You need to be in a distributor to get into certain retail stores. A distributor, for those listening, is a third-party delivery service, if you will, that has a plethora of brands, and then they deliver it to the stores. So retail stores don't want to do business with small brands sometimes. So then instead they have a few distributors that they pull from, and they have a multitude of brands that are fulfilled by them. And getting into retail is tough. Finding the right contacts, which is why relationship building is everything on LinkedIn. Cold outreach. People ask me all the time, how did you get into XYZ store? It's from cold outreach for the most part, or them coming to us. And that's why I say that it shouldn't be the goal actually for a CPG brand to only get into retail. It should be building your own strong foundational brand first, to the point where retailers want you. Like making French Squirrel, developing an e-com base, developing a fan base, customer base, iterating, changing when you can, launching online first. I didn't know because I launched retail first. This whole thing was a happy accident, so I couldn't have known. But if I were to redo it, it would be building online presence first, price testing, seeing how people responded to price. If you want to change your price at retail, it takes minimum 90 days to submit a pack change, a price change, pack change, design change. It's crazy. Online, 2 seconds. Shopify, I'm going to adjust it from 38 to 36. 2 seconds. At retail, an Excel sheet that makes you want to die because it's the longest Excel sheet ever, and it's archaic, and it will combust your computer. It's crazy. And that takes 90 days to change the price. You can't test the market at retail as much as you can online. So I would say it should not be the goal to get into retailers, build your brand to the point where they're coming to you.
You want to become the prize, not getting into the retailer being the prize.
Yep. But it also goes both ways that building your brand at retail, it gives you credibility. When you say we're at Erewhon and the Fresh Market and Mother's and Bristol Farms and Pop-Up Grocer, it gives you credibility. And then people go, aha, I want to buy that online in a 6-pack instead of one at the store. So it's both.
You're also always developing and thinking about things new and always consistently innovating. What are either A, we can take this 2 ways.
Okay.
Some of the most exciting things that you're working on presently that you're able to share.
Okay.
Or B, how do you view innovation and how do you consistently innovate in a often non-innovative space?
Yes, and extremely saturated.
Correct.
Too. I think that a lot of it is actually not reinventing the wheel. Everything has been done in some way, shape, or form, but going back to the basics. This is for me personally and for French Squirrel. A lot of people think that they have to do something so crazy. And I remember this when I thought I was going to launch a peanut butter in a jar a while ago. And someone said to me, well, why can't you be the next Justin's? What's special about Justin's peanut butter? I mean, love them, a huge inspo brand, but it's just peanut butter. They did it with branding and marketing. Graza olive oil is doing that too. It's just olive oil in a bottle and they're changing the branding and the marketing. So it's how you talk about it, how you speak about it, how you market it, how you position it. It's not always about the next big thing, you know? But it's the minute details in the back to basics, which is, again, only personal to me. I don't know about other brands when it comes to innovation. But for example, with our peanut butter, we add the chopped medjool dates inside. So it's a really basic peanut butter. It's just organic peanuts, sea salt, and cinnamon. But then we add in chopped medjool dates, which make it a little bit different, but it's still simple and clean and real ingredients. And so, yeah, I think it's a blend. When it's too out there, a lot of people don't resonate with it. So it's bringing that element of back to basics nostalgia that people are familiar with. If you come out with something that's completely outlandish, people don't have that connection. You know, like making a protein bite that tastes similar to a peanut butter cup, but isn't a peanut butter cup. I don't know if that makes sense. Maybe you can sum it up what I was trying to say.
No, it does.
You have to have both.
And what are you working on presently that you're most excited about?
We are launching a new Bisou flavor, our cereal clusters. Can't say the flavor yet, but it'll come out hopefully in the fall for back to school. And this is our #1 bestseller, or the cereal clusters for sure. It was born out of an element of nostalgia because I loved Puppy Chow and Muddy Buddies as a kid, typically with Chex Mix and powdered sugar and tons of sugar, chocolate, palm oil filled peanut butter. It was not good for you or for me, but I loved it as a kid. And so I found a way to make it healthier and more nutritious. And people love that because it's that element of nostalgia. Oh, I've had something like this similar before. It reminds me, it brings up good memories, happy memories, but it's also good for me or better for me. And I'm launching a new flavor. A lot of retailers have requested a second flavor. They don't want to oftentimes bring in one SKU. So for those listening, wanting to launch a food product, you often have to have at least sometimes 3 flavors of one product. I would say 2 minimum, but 3. And at the time, I didn't know. I was like, oh, here are my cereal clusters. One, I didn't want to come out with multiple. I was just testing the market. Now that I know it's my #1 bestseller, here's a second flavor. Ideally, there will be a third coming out soon. And the second one I actually gave you, Kevin, which is a peanut butter chocolate chip cookie that I'm launching with one of my best friends in the food space, Lex of Lexington Bakes. He has one of the top selling refrigerated desserts at Erewhon. And what I love about it is that we're so aligned. We're both luxury brands. We charge a higher price because we're using organic, clean ingredients. And we are coming out with a collaborative cookie where he's using our date peanut butter in the cookie.
I love it. I'm excited to try it too.
It's epic.
I'm very, very excited.
Yeah, it's coming out in October. Yeah.
What is, if I was starting a CPG brand presently, what is a question that I haven't asked that I should be asking?
You would want to really analyze pricing. It's everything. Because as I said, with the pack change taking 90 days, the price that you launch and come out with is so important. It's literally setting up your whole business. And as Mark Cuban says, you can always lower the price, you can't raise it. Technically speaking, yes, you can always raise it, but I mean in terms of customers responding. Building out a pricing model, a whole Excel sheet we have now. I didn't have that then. I didn't know what I was doing then. I was just having fun and enjoying the ride and seeing where the passion took me. But pricing, being okay with charging more in order to make money in the beginning, to have the cash flow to keep going. And the people that will buy the product will, and the people that won't. So I think that, yeah, it's everything. And building a community first.
Yes.
Building a community, building the personal brand. People want to connect with the founder. People want to know who's behind Kevin's cookies.
I got some good cookies. It's dope.
What would you come out with? If you were to come out with a food product, what would you come out with? Like, what's missing?
I don't know what's missing, but it might be an ice cream with hard shell because I eat that daily already. So if it was something
with a chocolate shell.
Yeah, like a magic shell. And the way I do it is I have this literally every night. I have an ice cream, hard shell on top, and then before it hardens, I put sprinkles in it. And then I just Zamboni the top layer.
Zamboni? Oh my God.
And then I put the pint back in the freezer. And it takes me like 2 weeks to go through a pint. So it's not like I'm eating a lot of ice cream, but it's like a little sweet treat before I go to sleep.
You have to try it with some peanut butter before you put the chocolate on top. Put some peanut butter. And if you didn't know this, peanut butter is high in tryptophan, which is the same amino acid found in turkey. And it makes you relaxed and sleepy. And that's why they say if you have trouble sleeping, eat a scoop of peanut butter before you go to bed.
Interesting. It's also why you are sleepy after Thanksgiving.
Yes.
Exactly.
Yep.
Well, Sid, this has been awesome, as was expected. Final question for you, as relates to the podcast name. What is the single greatest input that you have discovered that has allowed you to create the success that you've had with French Squirrel?
Not caring what other people think. If I let what other people think and comment from the things that I post on social media, French Squirrel wouldn't be French Squirrel. I am leaning into it, that it's who I am, and people have things to say about sharing too much. And maybe you shouldn't say that. Maybe you shouldn't post that. Well, that's how the business has become what it is today, is from sharing those moments. I would say, let me alter that and let's go with vulnerability. That's the one word, vulnerability, because I show up online, I'm vulnerable. I share about my experiences, my story, which then allow people to connect with me. And then they buy my product, because the product is just a physical manifestation of my story. It's not actually about the physical product. So yeah, vulnerability.
Love it. Proud of you, Sid.
Thank you.
Thank you.
Thanks for having me.